Hey everybody, if you like this stuff, hit like and subscribe. Um, as I've been looking for, I don't know, I just go through phases with knives like I do with anything. And was going on a traditional kick for a while. Now I'm looking at like minimalist, like super small, but has to fit certain criteria as far as my, fitting my hands and things like that. So I went through and tried to figure out what is the absolute smallest, and I use this in air quotes, tactical knife that I could actually use as an EDC. I've got little Barlows and little Swiss Army knives and things, but so if something is going to be one-hand opening, locking, and one-handed closing, but I need to be able to get a full grip on it. It has to be small, tiny, light, and under 3-inch blade. So that rules out the bug out, although I guess a bug out mini could be on the list, but I don't have one of those. And, how do I find something that is absolutely small and minimalist while still being usable for anything other than like a novelty? So I've had a couple of knives over the years that fit that. I've got an Axial Gear. I forget the name of this one. It's basically, I guess if you're going to draw an equivalent, it would be the equivalent to the Microtech Exoset. This is US made, S35VN, good steel. Under a 2-inch blade, so it's California legal for an automatic, but because it's such a tall blade, you actually have like a good amount of cutting edge because you got an edge there and an edge there. So this is one of those cases where the actual cutting edge is longer than the length of the blade. Kind of a cool design, almost looks you could probably use it as a money clip, kind of, which is what the Exoset does. But it's an OTF, and yeah, it looks wonky and the ergos aren't awesome, but you actually can choke up right here on the back of that Tonto blade, and you got yourself a basic box cutter utility knife. So we'll put that on the list. More recently, I've got my Spyderco Delica, which is very small, but we're kind of pushing almost to that 3-inch, so this is going to be the largest of the three. But I actually can get a full grip. You got that ramp, you choke up on it a little bit, and I can just get a full grip on it. So that's on the list. We've got our Cold Steel Tough Light, which actually is a really good knife. It's AUS 8A, so it's not like incredible steel, but it's good steel. It's good enough. Nice Warncliffe design, really, really sharp. Doesn't have a lot of belly, but very good for draw cuts and just opening boxes. But what I like is you got all this jimping, you got good traction, and even with my size XL hands, because you got that finger choil, I can get a full grip. I can use this knife and do whittling, cutting open boxes, choke up, do draw cuts. Like, that's actually one of my faves as far as small. Now, I do wish it was tip up. This is only tip down left or right. That's my only, complaint about it. But I can open that one-handed, and you can close them one-handed. All of these, obviously the OTF, but this one too, you put your finger up there so that it hits the blade, not down here where it'll come down and hit the edge. But I can open all of these. This one's still breaking in, but you can always use the thumb roll. So either way, all of these can be opened and closed one-handed. Roll it open, put your finger there so that it closes on the choil, so you don't cut your finger, and you can still close it one-handed, right? I found one that's even smaller that people had suggested, so I figured let's review it. Let's take a look. This is the Dragonfly 2. Picked it up for, I don't know, $77 or something like that over at Old Town Cutlery in Cumming, Georgia. Comes with the normal package, little Spyderco sticker, stuff like that. This one came in sort of like a camo. And so what this is just a tiny little knife. Now, when I look at this in my hand, I'm like, there's no way. There's no way I'm going to be able to hold this properly and open it one-handed, close it, and I'm going to be able to get enough grip to make this anything other than a glorified letter opener. It's 1.2 ounces. This thing is so tiny. So I went over and handled it, and I was like, you know what? It does open, and with that finger choil, now you pretty much are limited to this grip. I mean, could I guess I could hold it like that. This is I don't know how else to describe it. It's a pocket scalpel. Like, this is the lightest, tiniest dink. It looks like a freaking toy. However, you can give it a snap, and again, you put your finger up towards the top where your finger kind of wants to stop, from that little lip, and just go, and one-handed opening and closing. And because of that finger choil, and you got jimping on the back of the handle here, you got jimping on that ramp. This is the tiniest little tactical knife I can imagine. It is crazy. I mean, the Delica to me is small, and it just dwarfs that. My PM2 is just, it literally looks like a toy, but it's made in Japan. It's VG10 steel, which is decent blade steel. The blade itself, the total length is less than 2.5. It's like 2.35. The cutting edge is barely 2 inches. So it's right there with this. That's got about a 2-inch. But when you look at the bulk and the size of that, the fact that this is not that, actually it's not that heavy, but this weighs about the same as a bench out. This is about 2 ounces. This is 1.2. Like, this doesn't, it's almost like a keychain knife. And my dad carried one of those for years. It looked like a key, but it had a blade that folded out of it. But it was on the keychain, and then, you had to manually open it. And I don't even think it was a lock. It was just a slip joint. But to have something that little, and even in my big hand, this whole knife is about the size, barely bigger than the handle on a PM2. And yet, somehow, magically, even with my big mitts, I can get my hands on that. This blows my mind that this thing exists. That is crazy. Sharpness test. Beautiful. Very sharp out of the box, as are all Spydercos. Push test. Yup. Easy does a push test. Very nice. Very good factory edge. What a cool little tiny knife. If you really had to go super incognito, some people I see, because this is so small and you just want to forget about it in your pockets, they just take the pocket clip off and just throw it in and don't even use the pocket clip. That would just sit so flat and so light. It's so thin, you would not even notice that in your pocket. You'd literally forget it's there. Your keys weigh more. A pack of gum is bigger. It's just, that is insane. That is insane how small that is. And yet it's a quality, beautiful high flat grind. A little bit of swedge there, nice jimping. And again, man, I can get a hand on that for normal tasks. Whatever you're doing, you're opening boxes, you're cutting packages, you're cutting zip ties or twine or something like that. Or God forbid, you had to have talk about your ultimate. Like, you got your big carry guns, and then maybe you got your backup carry gun or your super discreet last ditch carry gun. Maybe, you got one of those little NAA Guardian 22 mag revolvers or a Derringer or something. This is like your last ditch. Your Glock is out, or you can't get I'm out of ammo. You can't get your larger weapon. And you're like, okay, I just need something right now to get this guy off me, right? Get this guy off me, not get this guy off. That's a different conversation. This kind of fits that mold. If you had to, because you got that, if you had to deploy this as a last ditch weapon, you actually can. Whereas I would never do that with my little tiny Swiss Army knife. It doesn't have a locking blade. If you had to stab that into something or someone, you'd immediately close it on and you'd be cut to the bone and severing, the tendons and nerves on your fingers. Something like this, if you had to, that's a 2-inch blade. That is enough to do some serious damage. And because it's so damn sharp, someone grabs you and you had to, you'd be cutting down. Think of the depth of that blade. You can hit arteries, veins, cut muscles, sever tendons. Like, this could be a weapon. It floors me that this is so tiny. But that is the Dragonfly 2. It's a nice little pocket knife that nobody would give this a second glance. You'd look at it and go, this can't possibly be useful for anything other than opening a letter. And yet, you got a nice locking blade. You got a full hand, and you can get in and do some skinning, whatever you needed to do. I feel like you could get it done in a pinch. Optimally, you'd rather have something a little bit bigger with a longer blade and, really get more grip on. But, man, I feel like this should be in everybody's emergency toolkit. It's so small, it takes up no space. You're going camping, or you got your bug out bag, or you just have it on you. So if you're somewhere where you really probably shouldn't be carrying a weapon, or you just don't want to, but you're like, I gotta have something in my pocket. I mean, someone would look at that and they go, oh, you got a pocket knife. And they go, oh, all right, whatever, it's a pen knife. Nobody's going to give you that. You have something like this. It looks like a utility knife. So maybe you could make that argument that, no, this isn't a weapon. It's a utility knife. I use it for work kind of thing. All right. You pull this out, they're going to go, oh, yeah, it looks short and stubby, but that's an automatic. So the perception is, that's going to be more of a weapon. Someone would look at this, kind of like they look at the Delica purple and go, oh, that's kind of cute. No one's going to take this thing seriously. And that's good, because if you were in a situation where you were having to, you had no other options and you had to fall back on something like this, it'd be very easy for people to underestimate that. And if you are in an area where, it's not illegal to carry a knife, but, maybe people would look at you funny or it would be frowned upon, something like this, hey, no one's going to notice unless you take it out. And if you did take it out, they'd go, oh, what is that? It's just a tiny pen knife. I need to open an Amazon box. They wouldn't think much of it. But that is a locking, good quality. It's a nice little knife, man. That is about as small. I just can't believe that this actually works for my hands. I was like, how small could I go with this minimalist kick I'm on lately and have it actually work? And Spyderco delivered. That is the Dragonfly 2. VG10, some kind of FRN handle. I don't know if they have any other versions. I did see one in black. I went with the one that was in camo. Just a beautiful, it's kind of just an exquisite, it feels very precise. Everything about it feels very well done, very well executed. It feels like precision. It's just this tiny, well-made, pocket-locking tactical scalpel. I don't know any other way to describe it. But if you don't have one of these, make sure it fits your hand, because it does fit mine, but, ergonomics are completely subjective. What makes sense to me might not work for you. But if you want the absolute, you want something, you say, you know what, the bug out isn't small enough or light enough. And you look at the bug out mini, and there it doesn't have a finger choil, so I do run out of handle space. Here, because you've got that choil going up there, that effectively extends the length of the handle. This is 2/3 handle effectively and 1/3 blade. And that is why it works. You can have that tiny little blade and still get yourself 2 inches of cutting, razor sharp cutting edge with a really wicked stabby point. But you can get enough handle on it so if you were skinning game or you were doing something that it's never going to be a hard use knife. But if you had to get in there and do something, you could get more done with something like this than you think. So that is my ultimate, how small of a tactical knife is actually practical to have and use. I can't think of a better option than that. If you can, tell me. Maybe there's the Bird Raven, or not the Raven, but the Bird series maybe has a cheaper version, under the Spyderco name, their subsidiary Bird. But I don't know. I looked through my collection, and the only other knives I have that are this small are like my little traditional Barlow's small Swiss Army knives and stuff like that. But they don't have one-hand opening, and they don't have locking blades. And if you're going to stab into anything, or you had to stab into anything, that's critical. Having a locking blade to protect yourself. Everyone thinks, oh, it's for a weapon. It's for a weapon. No, it's a tool. Maybe I've got to puncture a milk jug or do something. And you can do it with slip joints, but you have to kind of more push and cut into as far as instead of just poking into it. But having a lock is there for your safety. Everyone just thinks weapon. No, there's plenty of times you have to pierce a piece of leather or you have to pierce something and you don't want it cutting your own goddamn fingertips off, right? To me, that's a safety item. So anyway, Dragonfly 2, love it. Not as heavy duty, not as robust as the Tough Light. The Tough Light is that much bigger. But if you're trying to go for the absolute minimalist, discreet, lightweight, as small as you can go and still be legit usable, this is what you want. Anyway, have a good one, folks.